Okay, Be'ezus Hashem. Today's daf is Masechta Menachos Daf Kuf Ches. Another 2 pages more, and Be'ezus Hashem, and we'll finish the Masechta. So here we go. Gemara is on your screen. We're starting from Kuf Zayin Amid Beis, about 10 lines from the bottom. So the Mishnah Tanan Hasam. We learned in the Mishnah in Masechta Shkolim. Shisha L'Nedava. There were 6 shofars l'nedava. Here, pushka boxes. If you see on the screen, it looks like a pushka boxes. There actually were 13 in the Beis Hamikdash. You ever go into a Chassidish Beis Medrash, and there's about a dozen places where you put the money on the wall. In the Beis Hamikdash, they had these pushka boxes, which were in the shape of a shofar. As you can see, the top of it's wide on the bottom, so you can't really stick your hand in. So they made it in a certain shofar way where you just put the coins in, and there's certain people who had the key to open it up. So they had 6 extra ones to make donations. Now, Keneged me, why do you have to have 6 extra ones to make a donation? So, in a shul, you can say it's for the Sfarim, for the Rab Meir Balanes, the Kolel, whatever. But why in the Beis Hamikdash did they have 6 titles as Nedava? So Amar Chizkiah said an interesting thing. Keneged shisha bate avos hakahanim shetiknin lahem chachamim sheyehei shalom zeh zeh. As you remember, every day of the week, one family of the Kohen from the Mishmar worked on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and on Shabbos they all work together. But let's say there's 6 families. Now, what's going to happen is. Hi, Lewis. We just began. We're on to Kuf Zayin Amid Beis, and the Gemara is discussing the Mishnah, which says there were 6 pushka boxes like this in the Beis Hamikdash. 6 extra pushka boxes. There were 6 extra pushka boxes. Hi, we just began. So we're just discussing Kuf Zayin Amid Beis, and the Mishnah discusses them now. Why is there 6 pushka boxes in the Beis Hamikdash? Why were there 6? So Chizkiah said that it's a very interesting thing. If every day of the week another family of Kahanim worked, you could see what the problem could happen. They'll fight with each other. Why? Because let's say one day of the week is going to be busy, so that coin fine. When it's not busy, so then. When it's not busy, then they would use from the coffers to bring nedavos to the Beis Hamikdash, the nedavos on the mizbeach. And what's going to happen? So the skins belong to the kohen. So let's say they bring from the communal fund a lot of oilers and nedavos. So one family is going to end up having a lot of what you call it. A lot of extra skins. Right. They're going to have a lot of extra skins. So then, if they're going to have a lot of extra skins, then it's going to lead to fights with each other. Now, even though the ones that didn't get extra skins from the nedavos, they had extra skins from the people that brought that day, so they didn't have to use the communal fund to bring karbonos. But still, they feel that's mine. That has nothing to do. You're taking your family took from the communal fund and is getting extra skins. So one family is going to argue with the other family. Therefore, they had 6 different nedava boxes, and each one could say, "Listen, whatever was in that nedava box is designated for your family." So that minimizes some of the fights between the families. Rabbi Yochanan says it's another reason why they had 6 different tzedakah boxes to put money in the Beis Hamikdash. Because money is not like today. A lot of people donated coins. They got a lot of pushkas there. If you have one big box and you have all the money there and you're not using all the money on the bottom of the big box is going to become fashimelt. It's going to become rubbed out and therefore useless. So therefore, they divided it into 6 different small boxes, smaller boxes, so that it could accommodate the large donations. Uziri Amar Aziri says it's very simple. The reason why they had 6 different boxes is, let's say somebody donated, he wants to donate an oila. He has no time to bring it up, right? So he puts money in the pushka box and assumes that the kahanim are going to bring an oila, right? So he just puts money in that pushka box. So there are 6 different possibilities where a person could bring an oila. An oila can be in 6 different forms. Keneged par ve'egel, ayel ve'keves, gedi v'soyer. A big cow, a small cow, a ram and a small sheep, a large goat and a small goat and a large goat. So males. Now, they didn't really have to have all these boxes, but Verebihi, the Amar, he said, Kotan v'hevi gadol lo yotza. If you made a commitment to bring a small animal, let's say a calf, you can't bring a cow. So you had to put money into the calf box. You couldn't put it into the cow box and say, oh, it's going to be a cow, so I'm yaitse. So no, once you committed a certain animal, you have to stick with that animal. That's why they had separate boxes. But this goes according to the opinion of Rebbe, who we learned yesterday, that koton v'hevi gol, if you make a commitment to bring a small animal and you decide to, you think you're generous bringing a large animal, lo yotze, you didn't fulfill your obligation. Ubar Pada gave you another reason. He said like this, really, if the leftovers of an Osham and Chatas, only an Osham and Chatas, go to Karbonos Tzibur. For example, if I have a Chatas, let's say, and what happens, it ran away, and I bought another one, and I found the first one. So the din is that now I have an extra chatas. That chatas we put to death. That's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai. But a chatas belonging to the tzibur, like a par helam davash tzibur, that ran away and the tzibur bought another one, and now we found the first one. So then, what do you do with that cow? So we wait till it gets a mum, and when it gets a mum, you sell it and then put the money into the box that was labeled porim, and there it turns into an adava. But only a chatas and an osham turns into an adava. So a parim is paris chatas tzibur, v'elim, rams, an asham gazelas and an asham me'ilos that got lost. Again, same idea. Guy was supposed to bring an asham gazelas and an asham me'ilos, and then he separated another one, a replacement, and then he found the first one. So then the first one if you brought the second one, then the first one you just let it get a mum, and then you sell it, and the money goes into a pushka box, and eventually they'll bring an oila. They brought these oilas, it's called kayid samizbeach, when the mizbeach was not busy. So they always wanted it, working. Okay, Amid Aleph. Kvasim v'hasi'irim. Kvasim and se'irim are, let's say, an asham nazir, an asham shoira is a sheep. So if you have an extra, if that so happen to have 2 and you have an extra one, you would wait till it gets a mum and then put it into the sheep box. V'hasi'irim, or a goat. A goat was for let's say the goat of the tzibor. Remember, if it's a goat of a yachid, that's called, you have to kill it, the extra one. But a goat of a tzibor, let's say on Yontif, Sirei Chatas, or Rosh Chodesh, right? If you found an extra one, if you happen to have committed 2 of them, so you brought one as a sir chatas, what do you do with the other one? You wait till it gets a mum, and then you sell it, and then put that money into a pushka box. And when the mizbeach was not busy, they would buy with that money in the pushka box other oilas. V'hamoisrus. V'hamoisrus means, let's say a person. So the 5th box was called the moiser box. What is the moiser box? Let's say you committed to buy an animal, okay? And you set aside money to buy a sheep or a ram or whatever, and then the price of these animals went down. So you now have extra money. So you put the money into the 5th box. V'ha ma'a is very interesting. The 6th box was you have to give a machzas a shekel, but you don't realize that according to one opinion, you have to give a little bit above a machzas a shekel because maybe your coin was faulty. So to make sure you have the machzas a shekel, you added a ma. but you didn't put it into the regular box. According to this opinion, you put it into a pushka box that made the karbanos go for an oilus nadava, a regular donation. But it didn't go for the tamid because your regular machzas shekel went for the tamid. So you put a machzas shekel into the regular pushka box that they bought karbanos tiba with, and the extra ma'ah you put into this donation box. Again, so what we're discussing over here is that there were 6 extra tzedakah boxes. What did they do with the monies of those tzedakah boxes? When the mizbeach was not busy, there's nobody there, they would just buy karbanos and just bring it up as an oila. Now, they had 6 boxes, and each Amira gave a different reason why they had 6 extra boxes. So, all the Amoraim didn't agree with Chizkiya's reason. He said they had a tzedakah box to represent each family of kohen that was working on a particular day. So since there are 6 days in a week, each tzedakah box represented one family kohen, and this was because Chizkiya had a thing that kahanim, if you didn't have one box, if you had one box, the kahanim would fight with each other. So people didn't like Chizkiya's reason because we're not chayshish, we're not concerned that the kahanim of a fight are going to fight with each other. The whole chad v'chad yomi ka'avid. Because what is one family going to know what happened to the other family? The family that worked on Monday had no idea how much skins, hides the family that worked on Sunday got. So they're not going to come to fight with each other. So Chizkiya's reason they didn't like. They didn't like what Rabbi Yochanan said because he said that there's so much coins. If you put it in one big box, some of the coins are going to be rubbed out. So the Gemara says, like, we're not worried about that they're going to rub out of coins. It's not going to stay in the box too long anyway. Ziri said it was just to represent the different possibilities if someone wanted to donate a carbon oil and no time to bring it. So he put it in any one of those boxes representing the animal that he committed to. So why didn't people like Ziri's reason? Ziri said he has to follow the opinion of Rebbe. So therefore they didn't like his opinion. People didn't like Bar Poda's reason. Moisrus kuli nami moisrus. There was an extra one called Vaha moisrus, but all these other things are also Kvas and Zir and moisrus. So one is moisrus of money, and one is moisrus if you happen to bought another carbon. So we didn't need an extra one called moisrus. And more nami lishkolam muslim. If the extra mo'ah that came along with the machzas shekel, according to those opinions, you didn't even have to put it into the nadava box. You put it in the regular shekel box. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, where did this mo'ah go? Lishkolam into the regular shekel box, and they bought carbon tamids with it, not donated carbons. It went for a donation. So that's why they didn't like. Now the Gemara gives another reason of Shmuel, why they had 6 boxes. So Shmuel says, Kenegem Moiser Chatas, Umoiser Asham, Umoiser Asham Nazir, Umoiser Asham Mizaira, Umoiser Minchas Choite, Moiser Minchas Sirius Efer Shel Kohen Gadol. Basically, Shmuel says very simple. There are 6 different possibility carbonas that you have extra money. You set aside money to buy a carbon chatas, let's say, and then you bought a chatas cheaper. So what do you do with the extra money? Or you set aside for a regular asham, or asham nazir, or asham mitzayra. And Rashi explains why you have to have different ashams, different boxes for asham. Or minchas chayte. Remember, if you a minchas chayte means, let's say, you swore falsely and you're supposed to bring a mincha because you're so poor, and you set aside money, and now the price of flour went down, so you have extra money set aside for a mincha. What do you do with it? So you put it into this tzedakah box. If by the way, a regular mincha, if the price goes down, if you donated a mincha and the price goes down, now you have extra money, you have to wait till you add some more money and bring another mincha. Here, with a minchas chayte, you could put it into the tzedakah box. But here is a very important point. The Kohen Gadol that brought a mincha every day, he's supposed to pay for it. Let's say he set aside money, and then the price of flour went down. So what does he do with the extra money? He puts it into the tzedakah box. It turns into a carbon again, because these are chatas or asham. So according to Shmuel, the asira se'efa shel kohen gadol, the Torah actually calls it a chatas. It was like a carbon chatas, a carbon mincha chatas that the kohen gadol brought every single day, and that's why when he had extra money, he puts it into that tzedakah box. Rabbi Shaya says he takes out a serious sefer shel kohen gadol. He says keneged moisa chatas, moisa asham nazir, moisa asham mitzara. Instead of a serious sefer shel kohen gadol, he says moiser kinam. If you were supposed to buy birds, let's say you were a zav or a yoledis, if you had extra money, you put it into that tzedakah box. So the Gemara says, Shmuel, my tam alamek Rabbi Shai. Why didn't Shmuel agree that there was like Rabbi Shai, that there's moiser kinam? And says the Gemara, kinam tole reisha. There was another box called kinam as part of the other 7 of the other part of the 13 that's mentioned earlier in the Mishnah. So that was for moiser kinam. That's what Rabbi Shmuel said. So it can't be that the 6 extra ones said the word kinam on it. Rabbi Shaya, Tana, V'lai Tana, kinam. Didn't he have the Mishnah say kinam, but Tani Rabbi Shaya, but Tani kinam? Rabbi Shaya repeated the Mishnah, and he did have another box for kinam. And says the Gemara is simple: chad lekinim, chad lemoiser kinim. There are 2 boxes for birds. One in case you bought extra birds, or let's say you bought birds, they flew away. You bought another set of birds, and then you found the original birds. So you have to sell those birds. And one is if you set aside money for birds, and the price of birds went down, so you had extra money right away. 2 different boxes. Rabbi Shaya, the Gemara says, Rabbi Shaya, my time alone because Shmuel. Why didn't Rabbi Shaya agree with Shmuel? Savala, Commander Omar, he held like the opinion that says Moshe shall see you Sefer Kohen Gadol Yirkab, that the Kohen Gadol's gift every day was not a chatas that if you have extra it turns into an oila. It's not a chatas. It's an extra money that you just let it rot. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Moisa Minchas Nedava, Moisa Minchas Mincha Yirkab. Sometimes the extra money from a mincha is a donation, and sometimes the extra mincha money from a mincha you have to destroy it. My comma, what is this Brisa saying? The leftover of a minchas chayta, of regular mincha of a chayta, of a sinner's mincha nedava, that goes to a donation. Moisar sirus eifa shall kohen gadol, but the leftover money from a sirus eifa of a kohen gadol yirkav, he had to destroy it. He can't turn it into an oil. Rabba says, he disagrees. He says the moiser sirus eifa of a kohen gadol is an adava. And what did you have to destroy? Why did the Brisa say moiser mincha? Sometimes you destroy moiser lachme toida yirkav. The leftover of a lachme toida. Let's say you set aside lachme toida and a surplus of lachme toida. So now you don't need it for this toida that you brought. So the leftovers you have to destroy. You can't sell it. And but plukta moiser that's the machlekes. But plukta. When the Kohen Gadol brought every day, he had an obligation to bring it every day. So in some ways, the Torah calls it a chatas, but yet it's not a chatas because the Kohen Gadol didn't do an avera. So what do you do with it? Moisa Siyur Kohen Gadol, Rabbi Yochanan says it's like a regular chatas. Nedava goes for a donation, like a public chatas, which goes for a donation. Rabbi Lazar Amar Yirkav, you have to get rid of it. Meisvei, Moisa, we ask a question. Moisa Shkolam Chulam, Moisa Asir Seifa, Moisa Kine Zavim, Kine Zavis, Bikine Yoldas, Bechatos Va'ashamis, Moisa Seim Nedava. Here, this Brisa clearly says, Moisa Asira Seifa, go for a donation. So what's the leftover of Asira Seifa? My love, Moisa Asira Seifa Shal Kohen Gadol, the leftover monies of what the Kohen Gadol was supposed to bring every day goes for a donation. Question against Rabbi Lazar, who said no, you destroy it. Answers the Gemara loy moiser minchas chayta. A regular minchas chayta goes for an adava. The Kohen Gadol's mincha is not a donation. You have to destroy it. Amar Rabbi Yachma Yitzchak. Rabbi Yachma concludes this discussion. V'staver command the Amar moiser sir sefer shel Kohen Gadol yirkav. I believe that the leftover of a Kohen Gadol's money you destroy. The Tanya, lo yosem aleo shemen, litin lelavoina ki chatasu. A regular minchas chayta, don't put oil, don't put frankincense. That is a chatas. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, he kruya chatas. That's called a chatas. The ein acheres kruya chatas. Nothing else is called a chatas. Limid al sir sefer shakay gadol she'ein kruya chatas. It's not a chatas, and therefore tuna lavoina. The sir sefer of a kohen gadol every day needed lavoina. So in that way, it has no din of a chatas. Umid the ein kruya chatas, since it doesn't have a din of a chatas, Maisara Yirkov, the leftovers you destroy. So ends the sugya of before. Now we go to a new sugya. A guy says, "Shor zeh la'oila." I'm going to bring this ox for a carbon oila. So note that he said this ox. So he's not taking responsibility if anything happens to the ox. But the ox became a mum. So imratza, if he wants to sell the ox, b'damav, and bring with the money shnayim, 2 oxen. Or let's say he said shnei shvarim elu oila. These 2 oxen should be carbon oila. V'nistavu, and these 2 oxen both got a blemish. So ratza, what he wants to do, yavi v'meim echad, he could bring just 1 carbon. He could sell it and bring just 1 carbon. So he's changed it around from what he committed to bring. Now, he is not personally committing. He's not taking personal responsibility. He is doing above and beyond because the animal is not good anymore. But if he wants, he could, switch it. Rabbi says that you shouldn't do such a thing because at the end of the day, you said 1 ox and now you're bringing 2 oxen, or you said 2 oxen, now you're bringing 1. Same idea. He said this ram should be an oila. And the ram got a blemish. Now the ram, you don't have to do anything because you're not taking personal responsibility. But in if you sell it and you want, you can bring another animal like a sheep. It's similar to a ram. If you said this sheep should be an oila, and it got a muam. So since you're going above and beyond, you could bring with its money a ram. As long as you're bringing the similar type. Rabbi says don't do this because the animal in question was a sheep, and now you're turning it into a ram by selling it. Don't do that. But it's good. We go to Amid Beis. Says the Gemara doesn't understand the Mishnah. The Amid Reisha, you said in the first Mishnah, yesterday's Mishnah, Shar B'mona, that if you promise to bring 1 ox, the Hevi Shnayim B'mona, and you start bringing 2 oxen worth of mana, lo yatsa. So the previous Mishnah said you can't turn 1 ox into 2 oxen. So how does this Mishnah say differently? Answers the Gemara, simple. Shar Zev and Istoyev Shani. Our Mishnah is talking about you're not personally taking responsibility. You said this ox should be a carbon. If this ox had a mum, you're not responsible. You're just doing something nice. So there you could change it. In the previous Mishnah, it was a personal commitment on the person. He said, I'm going to bring 1 ox. So then, in order to fulfill your obligation, your personal obligation, it's not the obligation on the animal, it's your personal obligation, you cannot bring 2. That's what the Mishnah said. What's Rebbe's problem? The guy is going above and beyond. My Tama, what's the reason? We shouldn't have like Godol the heavy cotton. Because you first committed 2 oxen, and now you're turning it into 1 ox, which is you're going from big to small. Even though it got a mum, so you're going above and beyond. You didn't have to do this. Rebbe doesn't like it. If you're switching things around, Rebbe gets very nervous about that. Says the Gemara, Rebbe has a problem with going from big to small, right? So what happens? The opposite case, Rebbe should argue in the beginning of the Mishnah where you're going from a small carbon, you're going from 1 to 2. And we don't see Rebbe arguing in the beginning of the Mishnah. Answers the Gemara, he is arguing on the beginning of the Mishnah, but he just was very polite. Rebbe Akula Milsa Palak. Rebbe is arguing on everything. You can't switch these animals from a big animal to a small or a small to a large animal. He waited till the Rabbanan finished what they're saying, and then Rebbe argued. Teida, I'll prove it to you. A person said this ram should be an oila. Vinistiv, so he's going and got a mum. He could bring a sheep. What about kevazeh oila? This sheep should be an oila. It's small, right? Vinistiv, and it got a mum. He could bring with its money a ram. He's going from small to a large carbon. Rabbi even Asa is going in that direction too, from a small to a large. Shmamina, that Rebbe has a problem either way. Whether you go from a large to a small or small to a large, Rebbe has a problem with that, and therefore it's clear in the Mishnah that way too. Another 2 minutes. What happens in this case? Can I switch into another type of animal? Since I'm going above and beyond, right? So can I go from a sheep to a cow or something else, a different animal? So Tashma, come in here. Sharzeh oila. This ox should be an oila. V'nistayv, and it came a mum. So now you're not responsible anymore. But the Brisa says lo yavi b'dam of oil. You can't turn it into a ram, one ram, right? But maybe beis elam. You could bring 2 rams. Now this is a little strange. You can't bring 1 ram because it's not the same type. It was an ox that had the mum, and you're turning it into a ram. But you could bring 2 rams. We have to see about that. Rabbi Isa, Rabbi says even to turn it into 2 rams is a problem. Lefisha ein bila, because by bringing 2 rams, you're bringing 2 minchas, and it's not exactly what you made an eder. You made an eder for an ox, which brings 1 mincha. Now you have 2 animals, so you're going to bring 2 minchas. So let's see what the Tanakama says. Shmamina, you see that you could change it into another animal because you're going from 1 ox to 2 rams. So the Gemara asks, if you could change it to another animal, why do you have to change it to 2 rams? You could change it into 1 ram. Because Rabbanan have no problem going from large to small. So why can't I change it to 1 small ram? And says the Gemara, the Rabbanan in our Mishnah hold that it's okay to do that. You could turn from 1 ox to a ram. But the Brisa held that the Rabbanan still wanted you to equal it out a little bit. So you could only turn from 1 ox to 2 rams, but not to 1 ram. The Chatchila, you shouldn't do such a thing. So we have 2 Tanaim, what the Rabbanan said. Then we said, Rebbe Oyser, Lefisha Ein Bila. Tama de Ein Bila, Hoyesh Bila Shari. If there wasn't a problem of the 2 minchas, Rebbe would have no problem turning from an ox to 2 rams. But now we learned in the Mishnah, Ayal zen oil of the stoiv, Rotzi Yabidam Kames, Kabez oil of the stoiv, Yabidam of Ayal, Rebbe Oysa. Rebbe hates when you switch things around, even if you're going from small to large, right? And Rebbe should have a problem you switching from an ox to even to 2 rams. So answers the Gemara, Trei Tanoi Valiba de Rebbe. Yeah, so machlekes Tanoim, what Rebbe held, was Rebbe's very, very strict or not. Uv'tehoirim egel v'hevi park hevi v'hevi ayel yotza. And then the Brisa concludes that if you promise to bring a calf, and you brought a cow or a sheep, and you brought a ram, it's a stomach rabbanon. This goes according to the rabbanon that you could switch things around. Then we'll finish off over here. Amarav Nashri Bar Zvid. Amarav. Loishanu, we didn't, our Mishnah is discussing a specific case where the animal, you had to bring the animal. And if the animal got a blemish, you're not responsible. So if you switch it around, you really didn't do anything wrong because you could walk away from the whole thing and wash your hands from the whole thing. So if you turn it into another animal, you turn it into another carbon, kol hakavod to you. Amarav, loishanu el the amar shar zeh oila. If you said this ox is an oila, if you said, I'm responsible to bring an oila, hukba, then you can't change it into 2 oxen. You're really limited to 1 ox because you're taking responsibility to your promise to bring 1 ox. Says the Gemara, V'dilma olai lahavia kama. Maybe when you said shar zeh olai, I'm promised to bring this ox, and olai, oila, I'm promised to bring, it's my responsibility to bring this ox. But maybe he never took on personal responsibility with that kind of language. Our Mishnah's specific case. You said this ox is an oila. Inami, Omar, you said Sharze Olai oila. I'm going to bring this ox and I'll make sure to bring it as an oila, but I'm not taking personal responsibility. Aval Omar, if you said this case, Sharze, I'm bringing this ox. And if I can't bring this ox, the dam of alai, the money that I get from it, oila, I'll make sure that I have money to buy another ox. So then you can't go from one ox to two oxen. You have to stick with your commitment. Your commitment is one ox. You can't turn it into two ox. So hukba, you're stuck. And you have to bring one ox to fulfill your obligation. So we'll stop right here by the Mishnah.
Thank you very much.